History. It is something that brings us many memories, tears, and laughter. Hello, my name is Dennis Steiger. I will be your host as I take you on a pictorial journey through 125 years of St. Paul Lutheran Church of North Robinson, Ohio. The year 2001 was not only the first year of the new century, but also a birthday year for our church. We had anniversary events every month up to our grand celebration on October 21st. We had special guests, groups, and former pastors who visited with us and give us a glimpse back in time. Although my time only comprises a short span, about 30 years since my confirmation, I find that a lot of memories are still alive amongst us. My hope that through the pictures, videos, and music that I can convey to you the past 125 years of St. Paul Lutheran Church of North Robinson. Christianity is the largest of all religions in the world today. 1/4 of all the people in the world are Christians. We believe there is one and only one God. Jesus is the Messiah that was sent to be among man and to establish a new covenant between man and God. The Bible is the book that tells man of God's teaching. The Bible consists of the Old Testament, which describes God's agreement with the Jewish people, and the New Testament. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther had a dispute with the Roman Catholic Church. Luther had 95 objections to the prevailing Catholic practices. This became known as the 95 Theses. Soon, a church, now known as the Lutheran Church, was formed based on Luther's idea. The Great Migration of 1840 to 1910 saw a large number of Protestants, of which most were Lutheran, to America from Europe. Some of the religious orders were German, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish, and Finnish. A small assembly of folks came together in a northern Ohio village, a farming community known as North Robinson. This group of God-fearing individuals had a purpose to form a church. Though only comprising of 14 people, they had a desire to have a local church to attend. The town started when a steam sawmill was built where North Robinson now stands. This was built at the same time of the completion of the Indiana-Ohio Road. The original number only stated about 12 to 15 members, but a future was started. The people of this gathering wanted a church that was more of an expression of themselves and their religious beliefs. They formed what was originally called the Evangelical Lutheran Society of North Robinson. This meeting on February 13, 1876, also elected its first deacons, Henry M. Singer and Marlon Ebert. The first presiding minister was the Reverend E.W. Shannenbarger. They met in the schoolhouse and were officially named Christ Lutheran Church on September 11, 1877. Now the roads in 1877 were not the same as the smooth paved roads of today. Travel was difficult anytime and in the winter nearly impossible. The railroad was the best travel of choice, but primitive when compared to today. The members of North Robinson's Lutheran Society met at the various members' homes until a place of central worship could be secured. The first church building was built in 1878 on Western Avenue in North Robinson. North Robinson's main street, which runs north and south, is also the boundary line of Whetstone and Jefferson Township. This wood frame structure had seating on wooden pews with a balcony at the rear of the church. A shingled roof and wooden siding joined with the steeple and bell tower with a cross was the front facade that indicated that this was the house of the Lord. Over the years, with numerous pastors serving the congregation, the church joined with the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Lost Creek and St. John's Lutheran of Sulphur Springs in 1915. The pastor was Reverend A.E. Campbell. The congregation number stood at 101 and was becoming a large part of the North Robinson community. St. Paul Lutheran Church had started in the 1900s as a church with 101 members. At this time, the church was only 24 years old. Membership grew over the next 4 decades as new families joined and existing families expanded. The area known as North Robinson was becoming a very busy farming community. with jobs at the sawmill, the tile yard, and the North Robinson Equity Exchange, which is a local grain elevator. The community was growing and prospering. This village boasts of 3 stores, 2 churches, and a consolidated school building that is its latest pride. Until recently, a railroad station was maintained, which is located on the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad Company between Chicago and New York. With the advent of new improvements to the church coming, there was a need to dig out the basement underneath. Consul Secretary Paul Albright wrote in the Secretary's minutes of an event when Consul met at Arthur Bogan's house on the evening of February 1942. Church matters were discussed, such as electing pianist and chorister for the coming year. However, when Reverend DeLauder asked for a motion from the consul to approve the expansion of the church basement, nobody responded. So the Reverend put it this way: all in favor of going ahead with the improvement of the church basement signify by saying yes. The motion was then carried unanimously. With the end of the Second World War occurring in May, with the Germans surrendering and the Japanese surrendering in September, 1945 looked like a new beginning for the country. Another significant event happened that year in October with the forming of the United Lutheran Rural Parish. This parish consisted of churches in North Robinson, Tyro, Sulphur Springs, Lost Creek, and Leesville. Our representatives, Mr. Royal Dapper and Mr. Arthur Bogan, attended a meeting held at Lost Creek Church on Sunday afternoon on October 7, 1945. Items discussed were pastor salaries and a resolution to be presented to each member's congregation and the parsonages that would be used. 2 ministers would serve the parish, Reverend Robert Miller and Reverend Austin Shell. It was a cool evening on November 28, 1947. The church had been prepared and decorated by the Women's Missionary Society. Everything was in place for a community thank-offering service. No one could have imagined what would take place at 6 p.m. that night. Frank and Bess Bogan and Mrs. Lois Bogan smelled what seemed like smoke upon their arrival. They began investigating to find the origin until they opened the basement door. The ceiling was on fire in the church basement. Quickly getting fire extinguishers, they tried in vain to smother the fire. Driven back by the heat and smoke, they exited the building quickly. The fire raced up the chimney and consumed the upper portion of the church. Firefighters arriving on the scene found the entire structure was too far gone to save. The only water available to them was from cisterns and wells of nearby homes. Church members in the community could do nothing but watch the fire take down the 69-year-old building. The church council did not sit idle in the coming month after the fire. They got their permission to look into a new building for St. Paul's. Construction was started in April of 1949. Costing only $25,000, the 88 confirmed members had built and furnished a chapel-type church which will seat 135 people. With the gratitude and monetary support of members, friends, other congregations, and many organizations, St. Paul's had a new building and a new location to hold service in. The dedication service on October 16th began with a procession from the school building. The new brass cross and candlesticks for the altar, the pulpit and lectern Bibles preceded Reverend Robert Miller and Reverend Austin Shell in the procession. Dedication of the building and its furnishings followed as the congregation entered the church for the first service since its completion. With a new church building, St. Paul Lutheran was not stopping at just 100 people enrolled. It grew over the next 6 years, so much that discussions were started for an addition on the present building. In May of 1956, the church council asked for permission to borrow $20,000 to pay for a new addition and upgrading to the present building. Construction was started and the cornerstone laid on October 7, 1956. The seating has increased to 250 with the addition of 16 identical pews, a new expanded chancel area, all built by Arthur Bogan, and a larger choir loft. A new, larger kitchen and a raised children's altar also occupied the basement. The center for many activities for the people of St. Paul, this basement would accommodate all of them. There have been many changes and upgrades to the nave and sanctuary over the years, but the original structure still looks the same as it did in 1956. In 1993, an outside stairs leading into a classroom was removed to accommodate a new addition to St. Paul's. An elevator was added to provide handicapped accessibility to both floors of the church. And in 1999, the original colored glass windows were replaced with modern thermal insulated glass units. Each one of the windows on the first floor has an etching depicting the seasons of the church year.
So she was confirmed in 23.
Oh, okay.
Her and Ralph Bogan was in the same class.
Yeah, and Richard and Norris and
They had a big class. And
see, Richard
Kelly's-
and Norris started over at I think they were baptized over at the United Brethren Church, but then they came over to our, and so did I think the Nell started over there too, I think.
Huh.
Because Millard was that belonged to that church originally,
Hmm.
and they came over. We had a big confirmation class
Yeah.
that time.
When I was a kid, I was belonged up
So you've been going ever since you've been little, more or less?
And I joined the year after we were married.
Oh, okay. Do you
I
know?
went to Galley, the church, to United Church of Christ.
Oh, you did before that? Oh, okay.
there. She's probably all her life,
Yeah.
All your life?
Yeah.
but I don't know since I think it must have been 45 probably.
Well,
And-
I think the one that I remember the best is our first sunrise service in the old church. That's what it stands out in my mind. We worked so hard. Leela Huber was a teacher at that time and stayed at our house. And I don't know who else, I know I was on the committee, and we just, to have that sunrise service, we carried in plants and even birds in cages to make it look like spring.
But I can remember one incident that's kind of a funny nature. There used to be a Beanie Kemp that used to go to the church down there, and his family. They lived on the Crestline Road, the Sires Crestline Road.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And Beanie always wore a
Stiff Katie.
stiff Katie hat. The old, real stiff, you know, like the Derby.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And Bob Sweeney, who's a member of our church, Dolores' husband,
Uh-huh.
when Beanie would come out after service, Bob would knock his hat off.
Just go boop
Yeah.
like that. Just and
And Bob would run across the street when Dillmans used to live across there, Bob Dillman and his wife, and they had a briar patch. And Bob would run in the briar patch. Beanie chased him, but then Bob would get in the briar patch and Beanie wouldn't go in.
Yeah.
it's kind of
At home, the preacher and his wife, the preacher taught the men and his wife taught the women, and it was always a contest to see which one ought the other, and I think
oh, because they're right here and one to get loud and the other get louder and then they get louder and then somebody else will speak up. And, yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
That's the way they set for church and everything. Women sat on one side, men on the other.
Men on the other.
And we had a light at Robinson that many times the train would have to stop to get the clear signal to proceed. And we would have one or two guys that come up to the house and ask if they could pick up the apples off of the ground to eat. wasn't picking in the trees. They just asked for those eating on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, I can remember that just as vividly as I can. Those, I mean, it just wasn't one or two or three persons. There were
Yeah.
just hundreds of people. Oh, that the impression. I can remember. Of course, you had no heaters in the cars.
No.
And in the wintertime, you had to crank them to get them started. And of course, if they sat out all night in freezing weather, you just couldn't start them because they just turned hard. You couldn't spin it, fast enough for them to start. So if you didn't have coals to put underneath to heat the oil in the oil pan, well, I can remember we used to walk down the railroad track many, many times to Sunday school,
Yeah.
church.
Oh, I'll never forget that. That was another bad thing. I didn't like chili for a long time after that.
Oh, yeah. Especially
I had
since she was bringing her pot
we
of
were
chili
having a
out.
chili supper, a thank offering program that night.
Oh.
And Marion, I think it was Marion and I were up there getting the tables up and everything.
Oh.
And then we went back, and I come back with my chili while here. It's burning. Never forget that.
Where this is true or not, I was under the impression that Mother and Lois, Sammy's wife, were the ones that were the first. They were having a supper that
Yeah,
night, and they were
Uh-huh.
the first to go
Was having
in.
their thank offering
Yeah.
supper that night.
Discovered it.
Hmm.
Was trying to decide whether we could build a new church or not. And we was meeting down Howard Stow's. They lived down there in the corner where Hawes's live now.
Uh-huh.
Had the meeting there. So they decided everybody take a piece of paper, wouldn't write their name on it, but write down on a piece of paper how much they thought they could give towards the new church, and gathered up amongst the councilmen that was there that night, and I think it was $1,200 to come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the church only cost $25,000 in the end.
Well, the dedication, of the new one, I was very, we worked so hard to get it and get them to, some of them didn't think we could do it.
Yeah.
And we had meetings. I remember we had a meeting over at our house. I don't know if it was a council or who, but somebody from the Synod, and I can still remember. Because the ones of Richard's age, but the older ones were a little bit, they didn't think we could do it. Some of them, a few of them thought we'd taken
Yeah.
too much. And that's the reason I suppose some of them criticized it because they didn't build it any bigger.
Yeah.
Well, the
But
new
we were-
church was a little bit smaller than the old church was. As
Well,
far
but
as
we
seating,
were thankful to
to
get them to agree to that much,
Yeah.
because if we'd have gone, and then of course when we came out, well, here we came out debt free,
Yeah. So.
which was really wonderful. But we had so much good help and we worked hard, but we did, if you see the donations we had from other churches,
Yeah.
and everybody was so good to us. that-
Yeah.
Oh, I used to spend a lot of time up around the church. I helped build an addition onto it.
Oh, the addition
I
onto it?
worked on
Oh.
it. Between my times, he says, hey, you got time, you come up here and help.
Uh-huh.
Guy was building, and I was up there. I took care of the furnace for a number of years. If I got stumped on it, Waller's over at Crestline,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
or then I'd call him. Something going on down beside us at St. Paul's Lutheran, and they were banners. They had the banner, but they didn't have nothing to carry it with. So the pastor says, could you make something? So you see that old wood with a cross on top? You don't see it very often out there now because they've got new ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a wood cross, and you've seen that. It's
Yeah.
went up there.
Yeah.
Well, I made that up for him. So I had to carry the banner that night then down to St. Paul's. I don't know how many banners and how many different churches there was.
You've been church treasurer for how long?
Well, I think this is my 25th year straight, but I was
25th?
4 years once before that.
Oh, was you really?
You know, at one time, when Pastor Sneed was here,
Okay.
they wanted to start reading the lesson, somebody to read the lesson. And they had a sheet to sign up. Nobody would sign up. What happened? One Sunday morning,
He was the
Sherry.
president of the council at the time, that's why he could.
Sherry said to me, Ernie Smith's gonna read the lessons. No.
This is during service.
Yeah, right before the service.
And I had no
No way of
inkling that
reading
this
it
was
over
gonna
or
happen.
anything.
Uh-huh.
But that was the start of the lessons.
Yeah.
Being read by the congregation people.
Yeah.
Okay, do you go up and read them, or do you sit there? Well, I guess the good Lord must have moved me, because I get up and went up and read. After that, people signed up.
Huh.
That was the start of it.
Took that one person to get up, because I think before that nobody ever had it.
No,
And the pastor
no,
always did it.
Pastor always did it. I
Huh.
always said that was a pastor's job. That's what we paid him for.
Yeah.
It isn't quite so formal. Well, for one thing, we wouldn't have dared clap for anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Like if
Oh.
you have a group come in or something like that?
You didn't clap. It was, we felt that it was, for anything that anybody did. We were doing it for God. We weren't
Mhm.
doing it to,
For us.
For us.
Yeah, right.
and it was in praise of Him was the reason that, and I thought that was the idea. They were very, well, of course, German, I guess were kind of some, they were, how shall I say it, sober people, very
Oh, okay.
sober and,
Uh-huh. Story or anything that you want to share? Something that's happened over the years that kind of sticks in your mind every time you think about it?
Shut in the men's restroom and crawled out the window. He couldn't get the door unlocked.
Oh, Pastor Dan. Oh, I heard about that. That would have been something to see him crawl out that little window.
Yeah, should have a picture of that.
Where was the cameras, huh? That happened during the day,
Well,
though.
when we built the church the first time, and we was digging the hole for the septic tank in, and the windows was open, and John Walker's fellows was working inside, and Joe Mullencup was going to church out there then, and the ground was so hard you couldn't do anything with it. Joe said, we'll put a little dynamite in and blast the ground, you know. Well, Joe put a charge of dynamite in the hole down there, loosened up the ground, and the ground flew in the windows, and someone even hit on the ceiling in the church, and it didn't break any windows. Went right, it had the windows open. Boy, you ought to seen them fellas stick their head out the window when that blast.
It must have been really dry or something,
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
it?
all dry and hard. That's hard clay down there.
Wow.
The secretary room, that little room there's the secretaries.
Oh, okay, right off the side there. Uh-huh.
Well, at one time they didn't have a door on it.
That's right.
And they wanted a door because of some stuff that was in there.
Mhm.
So
Good log it.
I went and bought the door and closed it up here and said, if it don't suit you, I'm the guy you have to blame for that.
Because it's got the little, isn't there little blocks at the top up there? That's kind of
Left
unique.
air and
Uh-huh.
You know, I thought, well, for air and the other thing.
that would get kind of stuffy in there if you have that shut up all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Sure and Phyllis got
suggested,
all
so I
figured
just
up
went and done it.
And we've been very fortunate in the idea that generation to generation generally stays.
Mm-hmm.
And with our children, I was surprised that more than 14 kids walked up there for children's service.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose the reason I said Easter was because, hey, this is in our church is the main thing in Easter.
Mm-hmm.
The resurrection of our Lord and Savior. And that is the main thing. If you don't get anything else, this is the thing you have.
You gotta get.
He is the man that's going to save you if you're going to be saved. Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. Go to John 14:6. And it says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. Nobody comes to the Father but by me.
Huh.
So you have